The recording's already in progress. How did that happen? Oh my God. Hey, this is Kenny and
Kenny Squared.
with the Sports on the Positive Tip Podcast. Kenny, it's just you and I tonight, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's fun to catch up here. It's been a blazer here in Cleveland the last few days, so
Really hot.
it'll be nice to. Yeah, it's supposed to cool down, hopefully. But honestly, I would say, oh yeah, it's like perfect baseball weather. But at this point, no one still is caring about baseball.
Yeah. Well, so we're getting ready to go into the really fun part of the year, right? Another, that March time frame, April, that's a fun time. Now we've got September, pennant races, NFL starting in a couple of weeks, less than 2 weeks. Actually, a week from Thursday, right? Will be the first Thursday night game. So, what's that? Dallas
Cowboys.
Yeah. How about them Cowboys? Yeah. And going against Tom Brady and the Cowboys. We'll get to football next week. But this is a fun time of year. We've got some close races. So let's go around the horn. First, give us a pulse of what's happening there out in the beginning of the great Midwest in Cleveland. What's going on there?
Well, like I had said before, no one's really caring about baseball. It's really hard because also they recently I'm going to butcher his last name, Karinchak or something like that. Their closer for most of the year was just optioned to AAA.
Oh, wow.
Which to me is kind of a shocking move. He's kind of a guy. He chose number 99 and his nickname is Wild Thing, kind of like Major League.
Mitch Williams. And Mitch Williams. Yeah.
So that like he's one of those like character type of guys, but I'm still like at the point where I'm not sure what the Indians are like doing. And something that I think will play very interesting. There's talks that as part of the CBA, not only will they like lower the luxury tax threshold, which I think it's at like 210, it'll be lowered to like 180 million, but they're also considering adding a minimum payroll that you would have to have. And they said if this would happen, it would be about 100 million, which I think would be so huge for the Indians, or I guess at that point, the Guardians, because like all of the payroll, like losing Lindor, losing Kluber, letting guys like Carlos Santana walk. A lot of that was because they were trying to shed payroll, especially after COVID. That was such a big thing for them. Yeah. But being forced to not shed so much payroll might actually do them pretty well. I think it would hurt teams more like the Pirates, the Rays, the Marlins, teams that have a hard time creating revenue. But like, if this team is good, people will watch them. People will still be mad because they changed the name. That's still kind of a thing. But I think people would, if they're like back in the World Series, if they're back in contention, people will like them.
Oh, I think so. They used to pack that ballpark in the 90s, especially. I want to get back to what you said, though, but I got to ask, is people offended that they changed the name?
Yeah, I think part of it is just because the name has existed for so long.
Yeah.
I think it's like 120 years or something like that. Like they've been the Indians for a long time.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. It's like kind of like a racing part of people's childhood. A lot of it also is part of like the whole cancel culture thing, where they feel like it's only being changed to like satiate a group of people. But I think there's also more exciting things going on there. Cause like, to me personally, I like the name because I like what it stands for and everything like that. Like the Guardians of Traffic is like a huge iconic Cleveland thing. So like from the outside in, you look at it and you're like, well, that's a dumb name, but like it has a lot of meaning to the city. But I think a lot of people like, yeah.
Interesting.
So I think some people, it's like the whole political correctness thing is still kind of like a bone of contention. So
yeah, I mean, listen, no, we could still change. I don't know. That's just my opinion. But you said that teams will be forced to have to spend at least $100 million on payroll.
Yeah.
I just don't see how like the two Florida teams would be able to do that.
Yeah, that's my only thing is like
Yeah.
some teams that don't generate revenue. I don't think it's something that they're considering, but I don't think it'll pass. But
Yeah.
also, something else to note, at least with the Indians, they recently signed a lease. Their lease was expiring for Progressive Field. I think it's leased to the city.
Uh-huh.
It's extended to like 2036 or something like that. As part of that agreement, they're going to do renovations because this is a fun fact. I'll jump the gun. Progressive Field, formerly Jacobs Field, is the 11th oldest ballpark in the major leagues right now.
That's amazing. The 11th old. And
Yeah,
I remember when it opened, it was like a cutting edge type ballpark. Like it had to be like in the 90s, right? That it opened.
I want to say 93 or 95, but yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, they're part of the lease agreement. They're going to do like a lot of renovations to kind of continue to keep it up to date. So
I mean,
interesting.
we've been lucky enough to go. You obviously have been lucky enough to go often, and I guess I've been there a couple of times now. I think it's an awesome park to watch a game at.
Agreed.
You know? Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's interesting. And it's also a good location right downtown. And, if you want to go out to eat, you have plenty of, places there. So, wow, that's interesting. Interesting. I didn't realize 11th oldest park. That's amazing. All right,
Yeah.
let's get into round the horn, mostly here with our New York team. The Cardinals making a nice move here in the National League, obviously. The West, they're still, Dodgers, Giants going to be fighting out. Padres, the East, the Braves got really hot, and that was a huge series for them over the weekend, taking 2 out of 3 from the Giants. The Braves, I thought.
Wow.
Over in your American League, this is a great race. I mean, the Red Sox have kind of righted themselves. We'll get to your Yankees in a second. Tampa just keeps winning. I didn't realize they beat up on the Orioles so much. They were like 17-1 against the Orioles. That's the big difference, right? I think the Yankees are like 8-5 or something like that against the Orioles. Obviously, White Sox have got that Central wrapped up. And the West is interesting with the Astros and A's. So let's start with your Yankees. 13-game winning streak, man. It was outstanding. Now, are you feeling a certain way, though, that they've lost these last 3 now in a row? Or how are you feeling about the Yankees overall?
Yes, this is what I was most worried about with a long winning streak like this. Because, now I forgot who's pitching tonight. But, a lot of the good vibes with this winning streak could go away very quickly. The fact that they only settled for a split against the team that they're really working to try to put in the rearview mirror kind of rubs me a little bit the wrong way.
Right.
And they didn't play horribly last night. It seemed like Kluber was okay. Andrew Heaney, who I don't think he'll be on the postseason roster, honestly.
Yeah.
Andrew Heaney didn't look great, but they do have Tyone going tonight. He's had a couple of rough outings, but when it comes to ERA since the July 1st, he's one of the lowest guys there. For a while, he was number 1. So we'll see what he.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's amazing. He's the only guy. He's a guy coming off a double Tommy John, and he's the only guy that hasn't missed a start since day 1.
Wow.
So
wow.
That to me is also, it's surprising, right?
Yeah, that is.
But I think one of the big stories, a story that people aren't talking about too much, is Giancarlo Stanton.
Yeah.
He's back to the 2017 hitting baseballs over mountains type of Giancarlo Stanton. I had this looked up. I'd have to find it again. Since he's started in his starts in the outfield this year, he's batting .333, and I think he has, at this point, probably about 8 of his 20-plus home runs, and that's only in the last couple weeks. There's some guys, you mentioned it a couple weeks ago, some guys can't do the DH thing.
Yeah.
And I think one guy that can do the DH thing is Luke Voit. And I think the Yankees are still weird about putting out their full lineup, but I think Luke Voit should be getting a lot more of those turns at DH and leave Stanton out in right field. defensively, he hasn't really been bad either. Like he hasn't looked like, oh my gosh, please don't run that far. You're gonna pull a hamstring. Like Miguel Andujar has looked bad in the outfield at times. Clint Frazier has looked bad in the outfield at times, but Stanton hasn't. So I think they should keep giving him the looks. Judge has been fine in center, Gallo in left. So I think really like that's a very tall lineup, but I think it's a good lineup, and I think it's the one that like gives the Yankees the best chances in October.
I hadn't realized, and I agree with everything you said, but I hadn't. We'll come back to Stanton in a second, but I hadn't realized that Judge had been playing center field until I watched a good chunk of that Sunday night game. You know, that's interesting, and he's held his own there. You know, Stanton, we talked about him a few weeks ago, right? Only a few weeks ago, he had 14 homers and like 40-something RBIs. Now all of a sudden he has 24 homers, almost 70 RBIs. I mean, the guy has just been what he was. I mean, was it 2017 that he hit 59 home runs? I mean, it's not that long ago, you know. So if they get him and if he can be clutch in the postseason, which I think the Yankees will definitely be in the postseason, but if he can be clutch in the postseason, that makes that lineup dangerous again. Joey Gallo, I saw had a couple of big hits. I know they didn't win that game Sunday night, but he had a couple of big hits. Looks like he's fit in nicely with his team, you know. Go back to that series in Oakland. I was texting you this on Sunday night. That had a postseason feel, man. That was an exciting game. I know, you know, it was just like that White Sox Field of Dreams game. It was such an exciting game. The Yankees lost. The same on that Sunday night game. I mean, you know, I always am up for a great pitching matchup like that. There was great. It was good. There was some great defensive plays. The crowd was into it. And Oakland, you know, you're used to them not having a big crowd there, but they had a huge crowd there that night. Looked like only on the upper deck they didn't have anybody, but everything else I had to say they probably had at least 30,000 there. You know, for them, I think that's a good crowd. But you know, it just had a big game feel with your boy A-Rod and Vasgersian, you know, who I think does a good job. He's a little underrated, but Tony Kemp, I mean, that was just a huge home run, you know, that he gave up in the eighth inning there. So I think, listen, I think the Yankees need a win tonight. I really do. I think that 3-game losing streak at this point in the season for them, when they're right in the middle of it with some really, really good teams. I think they need to break this losing streak and take 2 out of 3 here from the Angels, win these next 2. What do you think?
Yeah, because also the Angels are kind of one of those teams where you're like, what is going on? I know Trout has been hurt, Rendon's been hurt, but like you're having a guy that is having one of the most unique seasons ever, and this team is still like a mediocre team. This is one of those, like it'll sting if the Yankees lose 2 out of 3 to the Angels. I know that they play the Indians in a couple weeks too. Kind of the same thing. Like these are the teams that you should be beating. We just talked about the Rays before, taking care of business against Baltimore. At one point, Baltimore lost 19 games in a row. You know where that's. I
don't know what's going on with them. Yeah, I know that's hard to do, man. It really is. And you know, we weren't talking too much about the Angels, but it's hard to believe that they haven't been good with one of the best managers of all time. I mean, to win, you know, in both leagues like he has. I mean, Joe Madden just hasn't had a ton of success out there, but they're a head scratcher because they've got up and down their lineup. They've got really good players aside from Ohtani, and we know that Trout's been out most of the year, but they should still be better than like 5. I think they're 500, maybe 1 game under 500, team. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with them. There's really nothing to talk about with the Mets, so we can move on. I mean, hasn't been anything happening. No drama at all with the Mets, you know?
Very quiet. Just a quick side note, though.
Yeah.
So Stanton's numbers as a right fielder, he's played 10 games there, 324, 5 home runs, and 9 RBIs in 10 games. As a DH, DH 267, 20 home runs, 60 RBIs in 91 games. So
that's the old Stanton, man. They need to keep him out there in the outfield. And it's good that he's healthy. You know, he was always a pretty good athlete out there. It was just, yeah, I think it's just been his health, you know. All right, let's get to my Mets. Listen, they had a great win today. They kind of turned the page a little bit. They're leading the Marlins now. They, you know, did you see the win in the first game of the doubleheader today? They were down 5-1 in the bottom of the ninth. They came back and won 6-5. So
yeah, and your boy scored the winning run there.
He did a great job. You know, he's a dynamic player, but you know, you were the first one I heard say that you felt like the Mets should have just parted ways right here, right? And paid him for the month, let him go latch on with another team. And then I heard quite a few broadcasters as well as writers say the same thing. You know, listen, so now the chances of him being back here next year are much low. I didn't think they were great anyway, but now I'm not going to say zero because you just never know. I was disappointed in him. I think that I was more disappointed in Lindor. Kevin Pillar, I think, just followed, and he probably just thought it was funny. I'm not excusing him, but Lindor and Baez are really close friends, right? They've known each other since childhood. You know, so Lindor, I guess, is thinking he's going to be able to convince Cohen to keep, you know, Baez. Not now. I mean, listen, I want to be fair. The Mets slide didn't start when they got Baez, right? And he's helped a little bit. He's had some big hits and you know, a few big hits here and there. And then he got hurt. So to be fair, they didn't slide backwards because of him. But Lindor, while he missed 40 games, he's never. I mean, he's still batting like 224, and it's just a lousy first year overall for him here in New York. We've seen it, and the fans to me were very patient with him. I haven't been to a game at all this year, but on TV, I've watched most of the games. I haven't watched all, but he has not gotten booed. I've seen Mike Piazza, Gary Carter, you know, Carlos Beltran, John Franco, Armando Benitez. Ask those guys how booing felt. You know, Roberto Alomar. Ask them how booing felt at either Citi Field or Shea Stadium. It was nothing compared to some of those guys what Lindor had got. And Baez wasn't really getting booed. You know, I think the fans were a little patient with him. And I think the fans can tell that he's a dynamic player. He's still kind of an all or nothing type player. But he does have a flair for the dramatic, and he does make some good plays like the running that he did today. And he did almost the same on a hit just a few minutes ago, scored from first on a double. But it's inexcusable. You know, Lindor should have said, don't do this. You know, and so Lindor is showing me now with two incidences that maybe he's not the character that I thought he was. Because the whole thing, the fight with McNeil, and I'm not blaming him for the fight. McNeil might have thrown the first one, who knows? But he was the one who lied about it. You know, I mean, nobody believes that they saw a rat or whatever they saw. You know, nobody believed that. Then McNeil kind of went along with it, but he was the first one who said that. The fans aren't stupid, and the fans would have just like, if he'd have said, I think I said this back then, if he'd have just said, I don't want to talk about it, you know, something that happened in the clubhouse has nothing to do with anything, I don't want to talk about it, the fans don't really care about that stuff, you know. They care that you're hitting 224. I mean, so it was just an enormously bad judgment. You can't take on the fans. I thought Sandy Alderson did the right thing. There were some writers here in New York, believe it or not, that thought that he brought more attention to it by what he said. And I'm sure that he made, you don't agree with that. Okay. Yeah. And I'm sure that he forced them to apologize. I think they probably would have anyway, because I'm sure, especially Baez, he wasn't expecting the backlash, you know, that he got. And I'm a little more even surprised with him because Chicago is not exactly a small market. And, you know, the Cubs mean everything to that city out there. So I'm a little bit surprised that he was surprised at the reaction. But the New York fans are, it's because, you know, I live here, you grew up here. We know that they're different. We've been to other ballparks. You know, the fans in Philly can be tough too. There's nothing like New York fans. As long as you play hard and they sense that, they're not going to boo you that bad. So that's why I think Lindor didn't get the boos, because Lindor still played hard. You know, so anyway, my take on it was horrible. It was silly, terrible judgment. But I also feel that it's easy to move on from stuff. Just play well. Just now, you know, he got a big hit, you know, in the first game today. He got a big hit just now, a little while ago. Fans have short memories. You know, if Lindor, you know, gets hot, finishes the season at 240, 250, and the Mets get into playoffs, which I don't think is going to happen, but, you know, the fans will forget, you know, a lot of the season. And that's what happened with Beltran. You know, he turned out to be a beloved player, you know, so did Piazza. No one remembers that Mike Piazza struggled his first 2 months here, you know. So anyway, poor judgment. I don't know what Kevin Pillar, while he's played well in some spots, played great defensively, and he's had some big home runs. Fact is, he's still hitting 212. So you've got, you know, Mr. 212, Mr. 224, and Baez is only hitting like 240. You know, and so these were the three that chose to give thumbs down to the fans. I mean, come on, you know. So anyway, that's my take. What was your take?
Yeah, well, I was trying to look it up. I thought maybe I'd sent it, but maybe I didn't. I saw a quote from 2004 when Derek Jeter was batting right around 200, and like the fans were booing Derek Jeter, which like you think nowadays it's like, whoa, that's crazy. And yeah. He even said like, yeah, I'd boo myself. We're playing horrible right now. I think like it's one thing to struggle. I think it's another thing to place blame on somebody else. And I feel like Baez was kind of saying like it's the fans' fault and fans shouldn't be booing. Fans can do whatever they want. Fans are the ones that are paying your salary. And I think kind of losing sight that like I know it's not like business like, but still like the fans are your customers. So number one, you shouldn't be looking to bite the hand that feeds you. But then also I think just to kind of say like, oh, like it's a fun gesture. Like the Yankees did the whole thumbs down thing. I think it was 2017 when they played that random game at Citi Field. And then there was a Mets fan in the crowd who did like thumbs down. So
oh, I remember that. Oh, wow. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, I remember that now.
Yeah. So like if it was like a rallying cry in the dugout, like, oh yeah, like this is what we're going to do, that's fine. But like when you're asked about it and you say, well, like this is for the fans, it comes across, even if it's not intentionally, it comes across that like you think you're better than the fans.
Yeah.
And I think just kind of like that sense of pride. If I'm Sandy Alderson, if I'm Steve Cohen, I stay as far away from him as possible. And I really like what you said about Lindor, because that is also surprising for me, because especially these last like couple months since DeGrom's gotten hurt, like you had the opportunity to kind of become like the face of the Mets, but really it's like, well, we're just still waiting for Jacob DeGrom to come back. And I feel like he's kind of failed in his leadership there. And yeah, I didn't really think about it, but yeah, he really like, this is a guy that's getting paid over the next 10 years, a lot of money.
A lot of money.
And I think, and I think like you've got to do better as the leader. You've got to do better in order to make sure that everything is going the way that it should be going.
Yeah, I totally agree. If he had told Baez, don't do that, Baez wouldn't have did it, because Lindor, you know, is the leader and they're really good friends. And listen, it could turn around. You know, Lindor just has more invested here than Baez, and Pilar. You know, Pilar's probably not going to be here next year. You know, so with that, you're invested for 10 years in this city. You've got to know better, and you've got to get used to the fans. I mean, he's been here for, you know, April, May, June, July. Come on, man. And you surprised. This team has played lousy. I mean, they've played uninspired. And I've never told you or said on this podcast that I felt like they weren't playing hard. I feel like they play hard every night. They're just not getting it and not executing on the hitting side. Their fielding has been excellent. Their pitching has been excellent. And their efforts have been excellent. So and even with them playing so lousy, they've had good crowds every single night. The fans have been sticking with them. So to do that, it was just stupid. All right, let's switch gears. MVPs. It is the 31st. We're going into September. Who are going to be your MVPs? Let's start with the American League MVP, and then I want to hear your National League. Who do you got for American League?
Pains me to say it. Well, not really, because I think he's a really good player. But you got to give it to Shohei Ohtani. I think the only thing he's missing is the fact that his team isn't good. But when it comes to raw value, no one brings more value to the table than Ohtani. Because not only has he been a very good hitter, but he's also been a really good pitcher too. And to me, the dark horse, a guy that's probably going to get some votes, is going to be my guy, Aaron Judge. Let's see if I can pull up his numbers real quick. He's had a very very good season, but there's no going against Ohtani. Here's Judge's numbers: 294, 29 home runs, 73 RBIs. He's got a 383 on base. His fielding has been great.
Yeah.
And also he's been right in the center of the whole resurgence with the Yankees.
Yeah.
But Ohtani though, he's 264, 42 home runs and 90 RBIs. 42 home runs, 90 RBIs. That's one of your favorite numbers there.
Yeah, he should have well over 100. 42 home runs. Come on. Yeah. But anyway, that's still great. That's still great.
Yeah. Let's see here. Pitching wise, Ohtani is, why does it say it that way? Here we go. 8-1 with a 3.00 ERA. He has 127 strikeouts in 105 innings. So a little bit more than a strikeout per inning pitched. Opponents are batting 193 against him, and he's got a 106 whip. That alone, would get some votes for Cy Young. Yeah. Let alone that he's also hit 42 home runs this year. So it's got to be Ohtani.
Okay. You're convincing me probably Ohtani now, but I went a different direction. And I thought of Judge, but I love the Jimmy Rollins, Barry Larkin, Kirk Gibson, Joe Morgan even type MVP, that the numbers aren't the best, but they mean so much to their team. And I know you're not high on the White Sox, but fact is they're having a phenomenal year. And I think Tim Anderson is the heart and soul of that team. His numbers are excellent. They're not off the charts great, but his fielding is phenomenal. He's got, he's second in stolen bases, but he just seems to be the heart and soul of that team. And I'm just thinking that he's probably my pick for MVP. Now, the American League traditionally doesn't do that. More than National League votes for the guy that not with the great numbers, but they carry their team to the playoffs. The American League typically goes with, thus, A-Rod getting those MVPs when he was with Texas. Jeff Burrows years ago, terrible Texas team, but he had great numbers. The American League usually goes with just whoever has the best numbers. The American League voters, got to be different voters, but it's like a tradition there. But I would say Ohtani, I really hadn't thought much about the pitching. Oh, I had thought about it. I think it's just unbelievable, but I didn't factor that in as I'm thinking about the MVP voting. So now I'm torn, but I'm going to stick with Tim Anderson as I think there's going to be a split vote there. I think you'll see Guerrero Jr. get some votes. You'll see Ohtani get some votes. I think if Guerrero Jr. Rises up and wins the Triple Crown, then bets are off. You should get the MVP. But I think that Tim Anderson will slip in there and steal it away. I think Judge will get several votes too, especially if Judge finishes like 40 and 100, which sounds like he is definitely well within reach. That's a phenomenal year. So okay, so I'm going Tim Anderson. All right, Cy Young.
Cy Young in the American League. Part of me says I shouldn't be this biased, but I think I'm still going to go with Garrett Cole. The guy led the league in strikeouts while missing like 3 starts because of COVID. He's second right now behind, never mind. I can't go with that. I got to go with Robbie Ray. I forgot that he's been having a great year. I'll read off his numbers, and I'll also read off Cole's. Why not? 10-5, 2.71 ERA, 159 innings pitched, 202 strikeouts with a 101 whip. Opponents are batting 208. Cole is 13-6 with a 2.80 ERA, 140 innings pitched, 200 strikeouts with a .99 whip. Really, it's probably going to be between those two. But also, Cole missed a few starts. Ray hasn't. And also, Robbie Ray's done really well recently. So a lot of like the recency bias might go in there. I want to go Cole, and I think he makes a bigger impact on his team. I think case in point, I think of that Astros game before the All-Star break where he like yells at Aaron Boone to get back in the dugout and finishes off a complete game shutout. I think he's like the guy that's most dominant, but Ray probably has better numbers.
Well, you're trying to be objective. I totally get that. I'm surprised you didn't mention Lance Lynn.
Yeah, he's another guy. That one hurts because he wasn't that good with the Yankees.
Well, that is true, and he's been good everywhere he went except here. I think it's Garrett Cole. I really do. I think he'll probably win 3 or 4 more games. So he'll probably have like 16, 17 wins. That's 2.80 ERA, pitching in that division. And yeah, I really felt like that game against the Astros that's what you want your best pitcher to do. They really needed that game. And I just think he's a big time pitcher. And I think he's really stepped up this year. So my vote goes to Garrett Cole. So I can take you off the hook a little bit. I know you're being objective, but I think Cole will win it. I really do.
Yeah.
All right, let's go National League MVP.
All right, I'm taking a page from your book. And I don't think you're going to like this one, but I would go with Bryce Harper if they can make the playoffs. Obviously, there's that big if because they would have to win the division. But Bryce Harper's been Yeah, he's been a huge part of it. Now, they are still 3.5 back, and they're only 3 over 500. So he may not win it, but I'll pull up his numbers. They're not amazing. And I'll give you who I would say is my backup, but he's batting 303 with a 418 on base, 26 home runs, 61 RBIs.
That's terrible.
He also has 31 doubles.
Yeah. 31 doubles. That's great. Yeah.
He also leads the league in OPS, which is a really big thing for all the analytics people. So I don't know, because it looks like right now they're on the outside looking in. Another team that might be on the outside looking in, though, but I would probably say he would have a better chance, would be Tatis. I think also Tatis has that familiarity with people where it's like, oh, like I know this guy. He was on the cover of MLB The Show. He was very dynamic. So I could see them giving it to him too.
Yeah.
That's
a
toughie
outfield
though.
Now. Yeah. Those are a couple of good choices. I wouldn't give it to Harper unless they win a division. And his RBIs that's stunningly low for him. but he's really stepped up. I was down on him at the beginning of the year and most of last year. He stepped up. I like what he's done, and he's had some big hits. He really has. Tatis, I think it's stunning how the Padres have fell out of it. And I think if they don't make the playoffs, I don't see him getting the MVP.
Yeah.
If they do, I think it'll be a close race with him and Harper. Let me give you mine. I went a real different direction. I'll tell you who I have Tatis down here, and I have all three of the Reds. I mean, they played great, and their three guys, Castellanos, Winker, and Joey Votto, have just all been fantastic. I mean, you could take any one of those guys and make a case for them to be MVP. But the guy I'm going with is who nobody is talking about, and I think while obviously I hated to see this turnaround with the Braves, I think the guy that was the key acquisition there was when they reacquired Adam Duvall. And the guy's batting close to 300. He's got 29 homers and 88 RBI. And it seems like him and Austin Riley, every time, there's a Brave highlight when they break into the Met game, it's one of those two guys getting a big hit or a big home run. So I think that what he's meant to that team has been just phenomenal. I think that was the pickup of the trade deadline, although, there were a lot of other ones with, high-profile ones with Scherzer and Trey Turner's been phenomenal. But I thought that was a key pick. I don't know why the Braves ever let him go. I mean, he wasn't costing them much money, and he was clutch the last couple of years with them. So I thought that was really smart to get him back. But, I mean, he's second in homers, second in RBIs right now. And the Braves have done nothing but one since they got him. And Soler has been great as well. He's a guy that kind of just, was playing under the radar there for years in Kansas City and with the White Sox. And he's been really good too. But Duvall, I think I would make a strong case for him, Yeah. All right. National League Cy Young. Who you got?
I think this one might be a little more straightforward. Obviously, if he were still healthy, it would be with a long shot Jacob deGrom. But I think at this point, it's got to be Walker Buehler. Let's see here. It's loading. I'm pulling up his numbers. 13-2.
Yeah.
2.02 ERA. I don't think I even have to go further than that.
That's
178 strikeouts. So, yeah.
He's been good.
I would say him.
You think about how overshadowed he could be on that staff, and he's their best pitcher. I mean, he's been the best pitcher in the league this year. I think that's an easy one, unless there's a big collapse from him. And there's some other guys that's had some good years there too, but unless there's a big collapse from him, he definitely should win it. Okay. So it's good. So we have it on tape. We know what our picks are. So we'll see. And believe it or not, in just 1 month, we'll see. Well, MVP, they don't name until like November. So it's going to be a little while, but we'll see how these guys pan out this month. All right, let's get to the fun facts. We've got about 5 minutes. So let's get to our fun facts of history. It doesn't have to necessarily be baseball. I've got a couple, though, from baseball. So you want me to shoot? I'll go first because this one will make you feel good. I think that one of the best races of all time was 1978, Yankees Red Sox. And let me just give you some facts that you probably know some of these numbers, but for folks that don't, it just blows them away. And for someone like me that lived through it to kind of now go back and see these numbers is just unbelievable. So on July 19th, the Yankees were 14 games out. 14 games. The Red Sox were just rolling, all right? They're 14 games out. The rest of the way from July 19th, the Yankees went 52-21. The Red Sox went 38-35. The big move was the weekend of September 10th that year. It's still called the Boston Massacre. The Yankees swept all 4 games. 4-game series in Fenway Park. The Yankees swept all 4 games. Here's the number that stands out. You know how much they outscored the Red Sox? In the 4 games, the Yankees scored 42 runs. The Red Sox scored only 9. in all 4 games.
Wow.
Those 4 games were just, it wasn't even close. They went into Fenway and they just blitzed the Red Sox. We could spend another podcast talking about all the things that happened that summer with the Yankees. Billy Martin got fired. There was so many things that happened. But the fact is, all of a sudden, after they were out by 14 games, they just woke up for whatever reason, just like they're doing this year, and they just were killing it. But here's the interesting thing that made this race so great. And a lot of people forget this because you had the 1-game playoff, which was a classic game. It was unbelievable. But to tie it, the Yankees had a 1-game lead with 7 games left, right? So the Red Sox got, on September 16th, the Yankees had a 3.5-game lead. Relatively safe that late in the season, right? But the Red Sox all of a sudden just righted the ship and they couldn't lose. And so going into that last week of the season, 7 games left, they had a 1-game lead. Yankees won 7 games. Red Sox won 7 games, right? So it comes down to the last game of the season. The Red Sox are playing Toronto up in Boston. They take care of business early. They beat the Blue Jays 5-0. Yankees are playing the last place Cleveland Indians. They get spanked on the last game of the year, and they lose. I think it was 8-0 or 8-2 was the score. So that led to the final, the 1-game playoff the next day, which was great. It wasn't anticlimactic, but I think a lot of people just forget that over those last 8 games, the Red Sox won 8 in a row. I think they won something like 9 out of their last 10 to at least get it to that 1-game playoff, which is heartbreaking that they lost. So that's my one fun fact. I have one more that'll be quick, but I want to hear yours.
All right. I'll start with the football one just to kind of throw a wrench in here.
Yeah.
So this is the game in 2003 between the Texans at that time, the expansion team Texans, against the Steelers. The Texans won 24-6, which was at that time like a pretty big upset. But that's not the crazy part. The Texans won 24-6, but were outscored, or they were outgained by Pittsburgh 422-47. They only had 47 total yards in that game.
Oh my God.
And Pittsburgh had over 400. So yeah, a lot of just weird stuff. So a fumble recovery, a pick 6, another pick 6, and then a field goal, where how Houston scored all of their points.
Wow.
So yeah, imagine scoring 47 total yards and then scoring 24.
That is unbelievable.
By double digits.
I don't remember that game. That is unbelievable. Wow, that's a good one. That's a really good one. All right, I'll give you a quick one here. 1980 season for George Brett. We talk about strikeouts. My guy still leads the league in strikeouts. And players, it's common now for folks guys to strike out 100 times, or even some people will strike out 200 times. George Brett, 1980, great player, Hall of Famer with the Royals. Flirted with 400 that year. I think like in September 2nd, he was batting 401. But he wound up still having a great year. He was the MVP. He batted 390. 390. That's unbelievable. 24 homers, 118 RBI. Here's the one that'll stand out for you. He struck out 22 times. 22 times in the whole year. He's the only player in history that hit at least 20 home runs and that had less strikeouts than home runs that he hit. I think that's just an unbelievable
crazy.
Stat. I mean, that was a great year, but that stat stands out for me.
That's insane.
Yeah, 22 strikeouts. And he had 24 homers, knocked in 118. Took the Royals to the World Series. That was the year they finally beat the Yankees in the playoffs after the Yankees had spanked them for 3 years in the 70s. They lost in the World Series, though, to the Phillies that year. But just a phenomenal year. But 22 strikeouts. It's just – that's hard to believe, man. Baez strikes out 22 times in a week.
Yep.
All right, you got one more?
Yeah, this is actually this is a Mets one, so I'm not trying to pile on here. I'm sure that you knew this one, but the Mets this year set a major league record with 58 consecutive games without a triple. And the funny part about this,
yeah.
you know who broke that streak?
Was it
by any
Lindor?
chance? No, it's an unlikely guy.
Oh man,
Pete Alonso.
Who? Oh, Alonso.
Pete Alonso.
Right. Alonso actually is faster than, for a guy his size. He's got pretty good speed, but that's unbelievable. And I think the Mets have 4 or 5 triples this year. 1996, Lance Johnson had 19 by himself.
Wow.
Playing for the Mets. Yeah. I don't know why guys don't take chances anymore. Make them throw you out, especially if there's, no outs. Round second, make them throw you out. Everything's got to work perfectly for them to throw you out. So, yeah, that's an amazing stat. Well, thank you. On that note, we're gonna be back next week, right? We'll talk about maybe an NFL preview. We'll talk. Obviously, the pennant races will be heating up, and we'll definitely preview the NFL because that'll be starting in a day or two after we talk. All right, so Kenny, take us home, man.
All right, this is Kenny Squared End.
Kenny,
with sports on the positive tip. Hopefully the Yankees can pull off a win tonight, but if not, we'll see you next week anyway.
All right.